Hey guys, good morning, hello, and good afternoon, and wherever you are listening around the globe or whatever time you're tuning in, I'm glad you're here. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. And once again, we are here to process life, hopefully your life, maybe your life if you hop on the phone and call. Let me give you a number where you can do that actually, because this is the hour where you can call in. We do the live hour. You can call in. We can talk. We can see how you're doing and maybe provide something good for you during this hour. And then also, but you can listen to the show 24/7. As you know, it sits there. But the live hour is where you can call. 844-940-2774 is the number. 844-940-2774. That is to get on the program. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying our new time. We're experimenting a little bit. Some of it's not experimentation. My schedule, every now and then, there's something I just, I can't not do. So we will tweak the time. We'll try to be here every day, though, at least, unless it's absolutely impossible. But so watch for the times. But we are trying this one, 10 a.m. Pacific. That means it's mid morning here. But what it does do in Central and East Coast times is it gives you a chance to tune in around lunchtime if you want to do that. And in other parts of the world, well, you guys, who knows when you listen, but we do love you, international callers. So let us know. The other thing we love is how interactive you guys are. If you go on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, just joining in and sharing your thoughts and reactions. And the times I get to go on there, I really love to hear from you. So keep doing that. Okay, guys. Thought for the day. Here's a thought for the day. Is the way that you are, well, hold on. Let me set this up first. Do any of you have anybody in your life that bugs you? Now, I know it's going to take some time to think about that because most of you, got 100% perfect relationships. It's all just, but I really want you to dig deep. I really want you to dig deep and see if you can figure out who is that person that every now and then they do something to bug me. Or, and this is usually where this problem comes into play more, who's that person that chronically bugs me over something? And the way that we're talking about it just it doesn't lead to less bugging. Conversation should be a debugger, right? Should be like a pesticide. We got ways that we bug each other, and we should have a conversation about it, and that leads to resolution. All right, leads to resolution. But let's look at the components of that for a second, because if it's not leading to resolution, then one of the components is missing, and we can break down this chain. So, how does a bugging get debugged in a good way? Okay, where no small animals are injured in this film. Okay, how does this work? Well, first thing you need is you need a person, right? Now, what's interesting, they don't even have to be there. People can bug us in our own heads because we'll create offenses, but that's a different story. But you need a person, and you're interacting in life. And generally speaking, there's something that there's some sort of need or expectation or something we want from each other. Expectation could be a negative expectation. I don't want you to do that, right? Or it can be a positive one. I want you to do A, B, or C. Okay, so that's how relationships work. Relationships create, moment by moment contracts on what I want, what I don't want, and fulfilling those for each other, and that builds connection. So here we're floating along, da 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 da, and all of a sudden, um, one person does something that bugs the other one or that hurts the other one. All right, that's the first component. You need a bug. Well, you need people, but then I guess bugging is the second component. So you got the bug. All right, termites crawling around in the relationship now. Now, at this point, it's time for the third component, which is an awareness of the buggy. Okay, not the bugger, but the buggy. So if you've been bugged, which means you've been hurt or offended or something, then it is your job to flash the light, the little blinking light on the dashboard said, bug attack, bug attack, bug attack. which means, oh, that hurt me, or that didn't feel good, or why. And the very first move in this is an awareness on your part. If you're the one that's being bugged, the bugged person's part. Notice I didn't say the first move you do is go do something about it. No, 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 no. That's usually reactive and not helpful. First thing is awareness. Awareness. And then you feel what it feels like, and you begin to then do the next thing, which is observe what you're becoming aware of. Okay, observe it. Take it through the court system. Is it a warning? Is it a parking ticket? Is it a misdemeanor? Is it a class 2 misdemeanor? Is it a felony? Now, why is that important? Well, 8,000 reasons that immature people don't do. Immature people just cry foul and, scream, right? But mature people, they take the offense into what's called a regulatory system in their heads, and they kind of start to work it through the system. Well, how big a deal is this? Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they didn't do it intentionally. I haven't really ever asked them to not do that, but maybe, no, we've talked about that. And you know what? I was very, very clear, and this is very hurtful, and they're doing it again. And see, we're starting to figure it out. And that kind of helps us to know exactly what we're dealing with, because what's coming next is a response to that. Okay. And we don't want to respond at the wrong level. And the wrong level can be high or low. Okay. You step on my toe and I start screaming at you like life is over. All right. Or somebody does something egregious, really, really bad, and the person goes, well, it's okay, it's fine. And they minimize it. That doesn't solve problems either. So when the offended party is regulating, what they're doing is they're they're considering this. They're considering, it's just something I can blow off because there's bigger wars to fight, or it's just something that you're figuring out how you want to respond, and then you have a choice. All right. And then you go into the next component. The next component is to actually address it with the person. Now, this is kind of the main point that we want to talk about today, which is when you bring it up, how do you bring it up? Okay. And there's a couple of components to this component. But the main one is, are you specific, or are you global or general? Okay. Now think about this, because this is one of the things that actually, when they do divorce research, if you're doing the global thing, then that's one of the big factors that says you're headed for a split. You're headed for a divorce. A lot of research on this. But what does it mean to be global? Well, your spouse or somebody doesn't do something that they said they were going to do, maybe take out the trash or pay the light bill, or show up on time or whatever. And a global response is, you're so irresponsible. You're just, I can't depend on you for anything. You never do what you say you're going to do. So what have I done? I've irresponsible, never do what you say we're going to do. What I've done is I've globalized something that makes it impossible to fix. See, we can fix a problem, but I got to know what the problem is. So if that's global, you're so irresponsible. You never do what you say you're going to do. All of that, as opposed to, let me talk to you about something. We've talked about that. You said you were going to pay the Visa bill, and you promised me you would. And I just got to notice where you missed it again. It's going to cost us now, and I'd like to talk about that. I'd like for you, if you're going to, take care of this job here, this role, this task that we divide up, then I need for you to do it because it's costing us. Okay. That's very specific, and I can actually do something about that. That's a problem that I can solve. The other problem with the global thing is it's 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 something we react to. Somebody spraying you with a fire hose. What do? You globally cover yourself. And so what that looks like is a defensiveness in a lot of people. Hopefully not everyone, but a lot of people. Because they're just getting smeared. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've been listening here for 80 something episodes and love you guys, but I'm going to tell a couple of you a hard truth here, and I want you to hear it. That sometimes people will even call on this show and I'll say, what's the problem? They start to talk about someone and they'll say, well, they're just emotionally abusive, or they're so this or that. And if you notice, what I generally have to do in those moments is I'll have to ask, what does that mean? What does emotional abuse mean? What are they doing? Give me some specifics, because now we know what we're dealing with. All right, so let's sum all this up this way. Our job with one another is to be a mutual immune system. Okay, if you're in a relationship, I really need your immune functions against my own imperfections. Okay, my own sinfulness, if you will, my own self-centeredness, if it appears, when it appears, my own laziness, my own harshness, I mean, go down the list of 10,000 things that I'm going to do in a relationship with you, not hopefully intentionally most of the time, but I'm going to do them because I'm imperfect. Okay. I need you. If you love me, I need you to point that out. Okay. You are part of my extended immune function against my own sickness. That's what a relationship does for each other. We let each other know how to get better. That's what a baby does to mom. Wah, wah, you're late, said in adult words. Wah, wah, I'm hurt. I'm wet. I'm cold. Okay. Mom, you got to do a better job here. Don't linger. Hey, we need that. We need it. Okay. But if we're doing it in a way that really can't be executed upon or utilized, then it's not helping me much. I can wallow in shame. Oh, sorry, I'm irresponsible. Well, what do I do tomorrow? So in our conversations, let's help each other get better. Let's help each other get better. All righty. 844-940-2774 is the number to call. 844-940-2774. And let's go to Michelle, who's calling us from Atlanta, Georgia. Michelle, thank you for calling and welcome to the program.
Thank you. I had a question in regards to boundaries within the step family dynamics. I would love to see you do a book on that. Actually, there's so many different pieces to that. We have an issue with teenage kids that come from the other household. It's 50-50 shared, and they bring the disrespect and the hateful, ugly.
Let me make sure I know what we're talking about here. Okay, so you are married to a man who has teenagers from a previous marriage?
Correct.
Okay, and y'all share 50-50 with the other house?
Correct.
Okay, and is the other house now a two-parent household?
Yes, she is remarried, yes.
Okay, and how long have you guys been together?
7 years.
7 years. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you've got a long-standing relationship with the stepkids now.
Yes, I do. And
do you guys do well? You and the stepkids?
That kind of depends. That depends on where their mother is where their mom is emotionally at any particular time. When it's it's me and the girls, we have a lot of great times. We do things together. We enjoy being together. But they carry so much of the unhealthy from over there, and depending on whether mom's raging over whatever it is of the day, they bring that with them. And the thing we haven't been able to we've read lots of stuff, love your stuff, it's been life-saving, but one of the things that we really just haven't been able to fix or kind of find a way around is when they make the transition over, if mom is raging, and what we found is, if things are chaotic in the other household, they kind of take that out on this household.
Yeah.
And one of them is a disrespect issue. I have a real problem with that, and particularly disrespectful to me. And my husband sometimes doesn't even see it. He's getting better, but because that's just always that's what he knows. That's what he's always seen from them and from her. But it's not healthy.
Okay. Give me an example of what does disrespect look like? What would be an example of that?
We had an issue with the oldest daughter. So I just I pulled back, because that's what I do when I get hurt, and healthy or unhealthy.
What is an issue? What did she do?
She was just being really hateful. She was ignoring me. She was back talking me. She's not doing what I've asked. We had just had kind of a round of things of just in general. And so I had pulled back. My husband, she had asked him and said, is she upset with me? And he said, well, I believe she hasn't appreciated how you've been treating her, so she's kind of pulled back some. And
not a bad
answer. He asked me to speak with her. Right. So he asked me to speak with her. So I said, I'm a nurse, had worked 3 or 4 shifts, so I was not in my best place at the time. I was exhausted. But I did go to her with him present and said, I understand you've asked your dad about me being upset, and I wanted to talk to you about that. And I said, I have been upset. I was hurt. I haven't liked the way you've been treating me. And immediately she laughs at me and rolls her eyes and throws herself back on the couch and is laughing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he did not say, I can't believe you're responding in that way. Instead, he says, I didn't see your eyes roll. I didn't see her eyes at you because I was watching you at the time. And I'm like, what? So we have a lot of these kinds of things where he just doesn't, he doesn't see it, which becomes an issue with us. And
what's the question? Is it about him or about how to deal with her?
How to deal with them, and what is from boundaries. I've had a couple of things where they came in and they were talking, they were very hateful, and I just turned around and said, look, girls, very calmly, I understand you don't value me and I understand where that comes from. I said, but regardless, if you or your mom thinks I'm valuable, God created me valuable, and you're not going to talk to me that way anymore. And they just kind of looked at me dumbfounded, and it got better for a little while. But I need some of those little things to be able to say, this is not okay.
It's sort of like, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle. And please don't send me letters about I'm comparing, this is not meant to compare people to dogs, but I'm in the midst of puppy training right now. So I got a new Doberman, and I love dog training. But one of the things about when they're just crazy and, in some area, they're just out of control, and you finally correct them. Sometimes they'll look at you like, what was that? What there's order in the universe. I didn't know. Where did that come from? And I love it. I love it when you say they looked at me dumbfounded. They were dumbfounded because I asked for respectful behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of that. And when we correct the youngest one, particularly, it's always the blame game. As soon as we say, you were caught lying, and so then all of a sudden it's about, well, you raised your voice. Excuse me, we were talking about, and so then we get off on a tangent. So I just wonder what would be a good boundary in just saying, look, if you're not going to listen to me, you're not going to respect me or speak to me, respect that I'm a woman in the house. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
I have some authority.
Well, and that's true, certainly, but it's also bigger than that. If you were a guest third cousin in the house, you would still want these girls to act respectfully. Okay.
Correct.
The role, partially the role of parents commanding respect with children has very little to do with the parents long term, because the parents are going to be gone in a few years. When you're when parents are commanding respect, what that has to do with is that at that moment they do have the leverage and the authority to teach a child how to respect another human. And then they internalize that value and they take it out. They take it outside.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. You've got some authority in the house, and all of that, but it's also good, and this is going to get into the answer as well. It's also good to contextualize this and remember this. This is one of the most important things that you can remember in parenting. It's not about us. Okay, I'm a parent also. It's not about us, and it's not about now. Okay, it's
Yeah.
not about
Yeah.
us. It's not about now. So when they're responding to us, what that's really about is it's about them and their behavior and how they're going to treat people in the future. They're getting their homework done. It's not about the homework. It's about doing their taxes and turning them in on time at age 40, or
Right.
getting the report
I
into
say
the
that all the
boss.
time.
Yeah.
Play this
So
forward. This forward.
play it forward. There you go.
Yeah.
Where'd you read
Play
that?
the behavior forward.
Play it
Yeah.
forward.
Play it
Okay.
forward. No. What does this look like? When they're 20. What does this look like as a wife? What does this
Exactly.
behavior look like as a
Exactly.
mother? Right.
Exactly. So now, why do I say all that? Well, one thing is this. I think, and you guys have probably done this. I'm going to just put it on the list for other people as well. Is in this blended situation, by and large, you're not the parent, your husband is, right? And you've been
Correct.
brought into that. And there's by definition, there's confusion for the kid. The kid's got, quote, two moms now, right? A mom and a
Right.
stepmom. And so one of the things that is really important is that the parents are really clear in their own dyad as what do we want to look for in and try to establish with the kids in terms of how they treat me, the step, as a parent. Okay, depends on their ages and this and the other. But
Right.
we need to be clear about that. And so that's, you said you saw that break down. He said, well, I didn't see a roller, and he didn't enter in and that. And so I
Right.
think it'd be good for you guys to sit down, you and him, and say, okay, so what are we expecting here when they need permission for teenage things? Are they going to go do this or that, or what time they come home, or blah 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 blah? Where do the decision rights for that lie? Do they come to me, or either one of us, or you? And I would just get some clarity around areas of authority. If they're
Okay.
going to go talk about how they deal with their other house and all of that, y'all might have decided, well, stepmom can give you some thoughts and opinions, but really that's kind of something you ought to talk to your dad about. Okay.
Right.
So just get clear. Then secondly, I would want that clarity to get transferred to the kids. So as a blended family, you sit down and you say, okay, you guys, I'm your dad, but you got a mom and a stepmom here. And so let's just talk about kind of how that works. And then you lay some ground rules and some expectations. And then the third thing I would do is I would say this. But what I'm about to talk about now, kids, has nothing to do with kids or adults or mommies and daddies and stepdaddies and mommies and daddies. This has to do with human human behavior and respect and values. And so what we want to do in this household is let's talk about some let's come up with a list of values that we think will make us have the best time together. Okay? What would some of those be? In your relationships with your friends, guys, weigh in on this. In your relationships with your friends, what do you like about your good close friends? Well, they listen to me. They don't call me names. When I ask them to do something, we'll talk about it and then they'll say yes or no clearly. If I hurt their feelings or they hurt my feelings, we talk about it. We can go talk to somebody else. We're compassionate, whatever. Okay. Well, if that's how your best relationships work, let's write these down and then let's have some household values here. Probably wouldn't call them family values because that might make it confusing to
Mm-hmm.
the steps.
Right.
But here's some household values. All right. So that's how we're going to try to treat each other. Well, what does that look like? And tie some behaviors to that. Well, that would look like if you hurt my feelings, I don't scream at you and throw a skateboard through your door.
Right.
I come talk to you about it. So then come to the next step. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Say, okay, so if one of us fails to do that, then what are we going to do at that moment? Okay. And if you get a good agreement there at that moment, what we're going to do is we're going to point it out and say, okay, let me remind you of the family value. That didn't feel good right there. That didn't feel like the way we said we were going to do it. Try again. And see, now you're engaging them. And this is where parenting moves from policing to training. Because training demands a focused attention in the moment and a reference back to a standard. Okay, here's what you did there. Remember, we talked about doing it this way. Here's what I want you to do. Now try it again.
Okay.
And that's how I would approach this rather than just a different way of approaching it in the instance. Let's set a context so we know when we do have to intervene, we have some proper ground rules and expectations.
Okay. And all of that would go regardless of what's coming from the other household. Because we do know a lot of this is they've been told you don't have to listen, you don't have to mind her, you don't need to do anything she says.
Well, if you know
and so
that,
we come from that, but that doesn't matter.
If you do,
that's still what we require here.
That becomes part of the conversation. I'm glad you reminded me of that because that becomes part of the conversation when you're talking about, okay, now these values, y'all have told me, or I've heard that, the other house, your mom says that these aren't important here. But here's how this works. Your mom and Joey, who she's married to now, they get to set the rules for their house. But over here, we're going to all set them together. And Dad and I or Mom and I are going to enforce them, right? And so you just make a distinction, say they can do what they want. But in this house, because this is the only house we're in charge of, this is how it's going to work. And then here will be the consequences. Okay. And also what I would do if I were you is, because teenagers don't have the most mature equipment in their head yet.
No.
Even on a good day.
Right.
I like to think that my girls are superstars. They roll their eyes when I say that. But I can promise you, I've seen eye rolling and teenage snittiness out of, both of them as we're going through the years and the stages. And the main thing about parents is we can't get tethered to that behavior because they're going to go up and down. We got to stay steady and then respond appropriately. Okay. I remember not too long ago, I was talking to one of mine about something and she did exactly kind of the unplugged and, whatever. And in the moment I said, I'm not going to call the name, but I said, sweetheart, what you just did is very, very disrespectful. I don't think you would like to be on the other end of somebody doing that to you when they're trying to talk to you. And I know I don't want to be on the other end. So you're going to get another chance to do that better. Okay. You just address it in the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that's what, and that's what we need in the moment.
Yeah, and one more thing is this. What I started to say, because they don't have they're just not equipped, and they've had an earthquake in their psyches.
Right.
You know,
Right.
a split is not good for a kid.
Right.
It's just not good.
Right.
So what we're also going to do is we're going to expect, because we have to get our expectations right. This doesn't mean allow, but we're going to expect them to get infected over there in the other house and kind of come into your house sneezing. They're getting a cold
Right.
over there, right? So so sometimes when they're making that transition or whatever, you got your radar up and you can kind of sense that. You might want to enter into that kind of empathically. So before you get into conflicts, just kind of say, "So how you doing? You know, what's going on? Did you have a good stay?" And all of that, and or you seem like you're not may not be having the happiest day today. Anything I can do? And so you kind of like head it off at the pass a little bit, and you
Okay.
become a little bit of a shock absorber where because what's going to happen sometimes is they'll bring that and they'll do something snitty and then we get into the battle.
Yeah.
So now we've got a
Right.
battle on top of an unmetabolized emotional state in a kid from the other house. So now we're
Yep.
stacking it.
Yep.
So if
And
you
we've had
can,
that.
if you
We
can
try and
enter
show
into
more grace
that and
on
heal
that
it.
first day.
Go ahead.
I said we try and show more grace on that first day that they come to make that transition, because
That's
that first
great.
day does need to be more, doesn't mean we excuse it, but then after day 2 or 3 and, they've been here, it's kind of like, okay, enough, So we do understand that transition period is, requires a little more, but then
but
the one
let's
child
let's
also is kind
add
of like,
let's
ooh,
add let's add to the transition period also entering into it a little bit and trying to
okay.
help them with it. Okay, I got to run.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you
Okay.
longer. It's
Thank
a
you.
tough deal, but if I ever get a stepmom, I'm gonna call you. I want you to coach them. Okay, sounds like you're doing a good job. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. 844-940-2774 is our number. Let's go to Abby, who's calling us from North Carolina with a stonewalling question. Stonewalling question.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi. All right. So my question, yes, like you said, is about stonewalling. Sometimes my husband and I, we've been married for just a couple of years. And sometimes when we are just not even arguing, just discussing any kind of question or resolving something, when there's a little bit of opposition, maybe he doesn't hear what he wants to hear, he gets frustrated and I start to lose him in the conversation. He begins to stonewall. And so that's my question.
Okay,
what can I do to avoid that?
Why don't you define stonewalling for people who don't know what that is? What does that look like? What does he do? What are his behaviors?
I've learned about this not too long ago, just kind of Googling around and looking for articles to understand what this behavior is. And I presented it to him, and he's agreed that potentially that's what it is. So it's when he basically shuts down. He doesn't want to communicate, even his eye contact isn't there anymore. He's just gone. He's physically there, but he's not participating.
Okay.
Not
and
cooperating
then
anymore.
when he does that, and if I'm a fly on the wall in y'all's house and I'm watching this, what's the next move? He stonewalls, and then what do you do?
Initially, because I am aware of it, to not make it worse, I just try to recover the situation. Like, hey, we could finish. It's okay. I was just talking about it. Let's continue. We haven't figured it out yet. Like, it's okay. Like, did I offend you? We're just talking, like something like that. But then if he and sometimes I actually do get frustrated. I'm sure that doesn't add to it because it is frustrating.
Does that?
So I might
hold
talk
on
to
a
him.
second. That you said a couple of good things in there. When you do that, when you say, "Were you frustrated? Did I offend you?" Does that ever help? Does he respond to that?
It depends. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. He
Okay.
could start to get a little bit like, fine, then I'll never do like things like a little bit exaggerated like that. I'm like, no, but that's not what it is. We're just talking.
Okay. So
and then
I got it.
It's gotten better through the years. So there's hope, but I just want to know how to avoid it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can avoid it, but because it's his.
Okay.
This is sort of like.
All right.
Yeah. Until he gets over this,
Okay.
He's going to bring it. He's going to have it. Okay. So, but I would say this. I don't know your
Mm.
husband, but based on a few things that you've said, I would say um, that there's a lot of hope here because you've mentioned,
Yeah.
two or three things that would give a lot of. I would say, I would guess he's probably can be very attaching and loyal and nurturing at times and kind and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
It's kind of how he is.
That's true.
Okay, and the other good thing is he does have a little bit of a capacity to observe himself and an openness to hearing that, he might be doing something that he could do better. Here's the problem. The problem is right now, he probably feels um, powerless in those moments. This is a shutdown response. And so there's something in that moment where he doesn't have a skill to put his handle on or hand on it on the handle and say, okay, when we're in a conversation and this happens and I feel this, here's what I do. He doesn't really have that skill. So he starts to feel overwhelmed and powerless. And so he kind of unplugs and doesn't talk. Okay, that's why I asked you a moment ago when you said, does it did I offend you in some way? You're kind of giving him a moment there to do a little emotional regulation, and you said sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. So, so this is basically, if you look at it as two pronged. One, he's overwhelmed because something's getting triggered inside of him, probably from the way he was, dealt with in the past. A or B, he doesn't have the skills to proceed at that moment. Then let's do something that addresses both of those. The best thing that I think hopefully could happen here is I would like for you to sit down with him at a moment when this is not happening and say, honey, I love you. I love our marriage. I want to be close to you. All of that. Sometimes when we're talking, it kind of breaks down, and I don't want to do anything that makes that worse. But you know how we've talked about it, and I've called it a name, stonewalling. But really, it's like when we're talking, and you kind of stop talking to me, or kind of be specific again about that. So help me understand in those moments, what are you feeling? Like what's going on? And try to get him to talk about it when it's not happening. And then as he starts to talk about that, he's going to talk about how he's feeling. And then I want you to say, okay, in that moment, what's the best thing I could do? What would be the most helpful to you in case this ever happens? What'd be a good thing to do then? So now what you're doing is instead of being on the opposite side of this conflict, now y'all are going to get on the same side of the conflict and the problem's going to be across the table. Here's this problem called stonewalling. How are we going to deal with it and work on it when it happens? How can we solve this together? And then you get a plan for it. And then in the solving it together, that's where the skills building part is going to come. Because you're going to say, well, he's going to say, well, if you could say this, I can say, I could do that. Okay, when I do that, if you could tell me specifically, maybe you need a moment, maybe you kind of are a little scared at that moment, or you're mad, or you don't know what you're feeling, you need to think it out, or let's just get some possible responses here. So if he feels less threatened and he feels equipped, then that probably is going to help us. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Sounds good.
Hope that helps you. Go to my John Townsend's book called How to Have That Difficult Conversation You've Been Avoiding. Or if you want some real specific training on this, in addition to 80,000 other topics, go to boundaries.me. Go to the website boundaries.me and sign up, become a subscriber, and it takes you into a whole world of very practical courses on topics like this: how to have that conversation, how to deal with stonewalling, how to deal with this and that. boundaries.me. You'll find a lot of help there too. Okay, let's go back to the phones. It is, let me see here. Where are we? We're going to go to Kim, who's calling us from Seattle. And she has a sibling issue. Kim, welcome to the Dr. Cloud Show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I really read a lot of your books, and I really appreciate all I've learned from you, and it's helped me immensely.
Oh, you're kind. Thank you.
Well, what I'm calling about is that I have two siblings, a brother and sister, and I'm probably calling about my sister more than my brother, but we don't have a toxic relationship, which I'm very grateful for. We grew up in a kind of a hellish environment. But
How old are you guys now?
A lot. Huh?
How old are you guys now?
I'm 67. We're 2 years apart. I'm in the middle, and I'm 67. My sister's 69, and my brother just turned 65.
Okay. So she's your older sister by a couple years.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And she lives nearby me, and we have had a history until COVID of walking our dogs together a few times a week. And but what happened? I've done a whole lot.
Hey Kim, can I ask you? Are you on a headset far away from the phone or something? You're breaking up every now and then.
I am on my cell phone. Let me see if I can change positions.
That sounds better.
Outside. Is this better?
That was better for a second. Yeah. Okay. So back to your sister.
Okay. So I've done a lot of internal work. I've done a lot of 12-step work and a lot of therapy. And she's a recovering alcoholic, so she's done some 12-step work as well. And when I get together with her, especially, I try to share things that I try to be really vulnerable and transparent about things that are going on in my life. Yeah. And she just doesn't have, she can listen to me, but she doesn't reciprocate. Okay. And very much, or maybe will say a sentence or two. And so whenever I call either her or my brother, everything's always just going great. And
so they kind of relate to you superficially.
Yes, and I am trying to figure out how to accept them for who they are instead of feeling this really sense of loneliness and disconnection. And I've just been stuck here for a really long time of trying to have a connection with them that isn't reciprocated.
If you ever sat down with your sister and just ask her, how would you describe our relationship?
And have I done
however
that?
She would describe that, you could just listen and you say, tell me what you would, we're sisters, we're adults, we're a long way from the farm now, but how would you like to describe what you would like from our relationship?
Okay.
So what I want to do is I want to pull out of her. See, one of the things that makes us, kind of like stick together is when we have clear expectations of how to behave in a relationship, because we can show up and do what we're supposed to do. If we're supposed to show up and we know we're supposed to show up and it's okay to, and it's fine to talk about kind of deeper stuff and process all of that, then we know how to behave and we tend to do it. If we know we're in a relationship in a board meeting or something, or, at work, we know that that's not the expectation. We don't show up and start to cry about things that hurt us. And so we know how to engage. Well, it may be a good thing for y'all to talk about kind of what is it she really wants? What do you want? And you might could even say, well, sometimes I wish, we're sisters. Sometimes I wish we could talk about some of the stuff that's going on with us at a little deeper level. Do you ever want that? and just have the conversation, because sometimes expectation setting can become, that conversation itself becomes an entree into intimacy, because that's kind of an intimate
Mm.
conversation. Now,
Mhm.
it may be, and I want to focus on something you said here. You said it's kind of lonely here. It may be also that she's either incapable of having the kind of relationship that you want, or she doesn't really want to, or for whatever reasons that go on in her psyche, that you may have to accept, okay, I would like to have that kind of relationship with my sister, but that's not going to happen. It's not who she is. So I'm going to relate to her to the degree and the capacity that she has and wants to have a relationship. And then I'm going to find the deeper stuff in other relationships. And you said one thing, and I want to leave you with this. You said one thing, you said, when you said it's kind of lonely, I would want to make sure that your life is so full of spiritual sisters, not biological sisters, but other relationships, a few other close friends where you're never lonely on the earth. Never lonely.
Yeah,
And probably,
I feel like I have that. I do have a lot
okay,
of close friends, but I think I'm just wanting. My parents have been gone for many years, and I think
right.
I want more from my siblings. So,
That may be. And you can talk about that, and I hope you get it. But if you don't, then you kind of grieve that, and you can go, you said you've done a lot of work. You also can go talk to your therapist about, sometimes with siblings, what gets triggered is kind of the deep feelings and longings of what it felt like in the family of origin. So you're starting to feel at a deeper level some of the loneliness that you felt when you really did live down the hall from her. And
I'm sure
that
that's
can
true.
be a part of this as well. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
God bless you for
Okay.
wanting to be a good sister. I hope that is helpful to you and you guys can find great healing together. What a wonderful thing it is when people come from a home where it wasn't the best send off into life. I mean, every home has issues, but some some are war zones and don't prepare people, and they prepare them in ways that they should never even be prepared, because now they have PTSD because they've experienced crap they should never have experienced. And then they send them into adult life. And so what are you going to do then? Right? You're not prepared. You're prepared for things in ways that you shouldn't be prepared for. You're prepared for everybody but to betray you. Well, not everybody's going to betray you, but now you're not trusting because of the way you were prepared. And so a lot of times when you come from a home where there's some of that, what a great, incredible blessing it is. And I want to encourage all of you, if you can find this with your adult siblings, that you can find partners in recovery, and where you're processing together and you're both looking back and saying, wow, I can't believe what you had to deal with. I watched it at the dinner table, or I can't believe or I can't believe how you treated me, or I treated you. And aren't we having fun now? Yeah, we are, because we're past it, but we're helping each other to get past it. So adult sibling relationships can be very, very healing if they can be done. On the other hand, remember, if you come from a dysfunctional home, that means that everybody in that house has got to have, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I'm having a moment here, guys. I'm having a moment. This isn't a moment. Okay. I want you to hear this. Every now and then you have those moments, right? If you come from a dysfunctional home, okay, that did not prepare you for life, to give you the skills you need to relate in the way you want to relate and pick the people you want to relate to well. And it prepared you in a way you shouldn't be prepared, right? To expect disaster around every corner, expect people to abandon you, look for them to abandon you, be vigilant. Okay. If you come from that kind of home, you and your siblings, okay, are by definition going to not be able to have a good, deep, intimate, nourishing, growth producing relationship until there has been an awakening. Okay? You're going down a path. Somebody has the awakening moment where the light comes to them and God knocks on their door, says, hey, dude, you got some issues you need healing for. You've been hurt. Come out of that path and get into a path of healing. They have an awakening. And then they start to realize, hey, there's better ways to do this than the way we were raised or the ways that I have developed in defense of and able to cope with the way that we were raised. That awakening moment's got to happen. Okay, so here was the big moment I was having a minute ago that I want to tell you. You've had that moment. I mean, if you're listening to this program and you're talking and you're calling in about this, or you're reading books about it, or you're going to therapy, okay, you're post moment. You're in the path now. But here's the problem. You might have a sibling that hasn't hit their moment yet. They haven't awakened from the coma of what they grew up with, what you grew up with. And so sometimes what we do is we expect people pre-awakening to have post-awakening behavior and responses. And that always leads us down a wrong path. We're asking for behavior out of people that they're not even aware of, much less aligned with, much less equipped to deliver. So the craziness at that moment has become ours, not theirs. Okay, so we don't expect what somebody's not been able or enabled in a good way to do. Changes our task, right? Changes our task from expecting and demanding to offering and helping. See, now you're looking at them and now you're trying to be a bridge to an awakening. And that happens in 1,000 ways. It's like in the Bible, Jesus heals a guy and he comes back and they said, ask him all these questions. He goes, look, I don't know. All I know is I was blind and now I can see. Well, you might not know all the intricacies of your getting well and how it all works, etc. But you can go to your sibling and say, you know what, guys, I just got to share something with you. I don't know if y'all struggle. I had depression or an addiction or whatever. And I went into therapy or I went into a 12-step group or whatever. And I found out, a lot of this stuff I learned in our house. And I've learned some stuff. It's really helping me. You guys want to go to a meeting with me? Or you want to read this book? This really helped me. See, now the task is to be a redeemer, not a judge. My blood boils when I think of the people that call themselves spiritual. And let's talk about a lot of that is Christians, okay, which I am one. Okay, so I'm talking about my faith family here that sit around and judge people instead of trying to be a bridge. If somebody's struggling and caught up in some dysfunctional behavior, even if it is aimed at us, our role as a spiritual person is never, ever, ever to judge and condemn them for what they're doing that doesn't meet our expectation. Never. In fact, it comes with the harshest of warnings. Judge not, lest you be judged. Okay? On the other hand, one of my favorite verses, go read it. Galatians 6:1. Read it in a lot of different versions. Here's what it says. If you see somebody caught up in, I'm going to paraphrase, caught up in dysfunctional patterns, it says, if you see somebody caught up in a sin or caught up in a weakness or something. Here's what it says. You who are spiritual, go and restore that person with a spirit of gentleness and humility, not judgment. You don't see a seasoned 12-stepper who's got 20 years of sobriety go out there and judge somebody who's struggling with addiction. No, that's the morally superior, judgmental hypocrites that do that. What the seasoned, sober, spiritual person does is goes to them in a spirit of humility, as the verse says, lest you be caught up in the same thing yourself. Oh, I love that part of that passage in Galatians 6. Lest you be caught up in the same thing yourself. The 12-stepper goes and knows, look, I'm no better than you. I got the same weaknesses you do. I got to be careful, and I want to help you. And we become agents of helping each other when we realize somebody hasn't had that awakening yet. Let's not judge. Let's help. Let's not judge. Let's help. Okay? Bugs me. Okay. Mary, calling us from Ohio, has a professional question. And Mary, you get to be probably our last caller today. I can't believe how fast this hour goes. If we, one day if we build, if this gets to where it's a real, I'd say real after COVID or something, it turns into a real show, we have to move to longer time periods. Anyway, Mary, how are you?
Hi. Thank you for taking my phone call. And I've never listened to your show before, but I think you have a lifelong listener after listening to the short
thank you.
time. I just have a real quick.
Let me ask though, because if I do something right, I want to do it again. What did you connect with that was helpful?
I think a lot of the scenarios that I've listened to today has just helped me maybe approach some of my siblings and, in a different way. It just gives me a broader outlook on how to approach things. So it's a very good service. Thank you.
Mary, I'm going to say, I'll get to your question in a second, but I do want to say this. There is such power. One of the reasons I love call-in shows like this is there's such power in all of us sharing our stories, because what we find is just what you said. We learn as we get to watch. The only way we get better is through experience, but there's two options. Either we get to experience or learn from somebody else's experience. So we learn from that, but also we learn to identify in each caller. I felt that way. I might not be with a sibling, it might be with a friend, but I've had that same feeling. And so in the sharing, that's why I'm always grateful to you callers, because you really give us the opportunity to jump in here together into the pool and all learn how to swim better. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Right.
Now let's talk about you.
Yeah.
What is your question?
Well, just one more quick thing. I'm also a Dave Ramsey fan, I've heard you on his show. So I think, yeah. But anyway, call in to my buddy Dave and say hi. What an incredible service he provides for so many people. Get them out of debt. Yeah.
Incredible.
I'm a special education teacher, about 30 years. And I try to do my best. I advocate very heavily for my students. And I'm in a Catholic school. And I had a teacher during the pandemic. We were on a group texting app, and she made a mean remark about me. Just out of the blue, it shocked me and it hurt me, and it took me back to junior high.
Let me ask you a question. When you say a group texting app, was this a professional group? Y'all are having a Zoom meeting, all the teachers together, or is this just a few friends?
Yeah, we were getting ready. Yes, correct. We were getting ready to have a Zoom meeting, and we were texting on a different application. I said, I'm on, I'm just waiting, staring at my screen, and she made a remark. She said, well, Mary is about as dumb as Kathy, or Kathy is about as dumb as Mary. And I think she thought she was just texting another teacher. which is not really too smart on her part, but everybody saw it.
So like, who's the dumb one here, right?
Right, and I didn't see it until first I didn't think to look at the other threads when I was getting ready to get on, staring at my other screen. So I didn't find out about it till like 2 or 3 months later from another teacher, and the other teacher that she talked about. So
the other dumb one.
Right, yeah.
She called you and said, "Hey, Mary, we're getting called dumb over here."
Right, and so I just want to get your outlook on it and how you think I should approach it. I'm the kind of person I feel like I have to. How I can address it, because I feel like if I don't address it, maybe she might do it again. I don't know.
Well, she might do it again. When she did it this time, what were the repercussions?
Well, I did talk with her. I'm the kind of person I want to get things kind of done and over with. And I did get a screenshot of it, and I also wrote a comment. Well, that's something I wrote. I also, what I thought about it, and I just basically said, to whom this may concern, Mrs. So-and-so wrote this about me. If I'm not meeting her needs for her class, she needs to let me know so we can remediate this issue, blah, blah, blah. And then I also gave her a screenshot of what she said. And when I approached her on it, she basically said, well, I don't remember that. And I was just venting and kind of just...
She said, I don't remember that, and what?
And I was just venting. So, which made me a little bit angry, because she was, I don't know. Emotions have been high with this pandemic. I think that's an understatement.
Okay.
And
so what, that was all that happened in the response? Was that it?
Right. And so I said, well, here is my response. And I gave her the letter that I wrote. It's just a very, like, a couple sentences on, if I'm not meeting your needs, please let me know. And I copied it to my principal and to my supervisor. So she knows that there's like a paper trail out there.
What did the principal and the supervisor do?
My supervisor was very supportive, and my principal, I talked to her initially about it a few weeks ago, and I talked to her over the phone. So she said, yes, I was surprised about it, and she really didn't tell me, she talked to me like she was going to address it, but I don't know if she will.
Yeah, it sounds like the bosses are asleep at the switch here.
Right.
I mean, kind of like, at least, I mean, I'm not exactly an HR professional, but you have something like that. Generally, somebody from HR would call you and the other lady and the one who did this in together and say, guys, what's going on here? This isn't the kind of stuff we want in our culture. And you did this in a professional meeting. And so, this is not okay. So tell me, why did you do this? That would be at least. I mean, there's some people I wouldn't, but some people, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but you could say this kind of almost smacks to what they call hostile work environment. People, there's somebody not paying attention here is my point. Now, I don't think this is. Never mind. Right. I don't want to make a bigger deal out of this than it is, but it is a big enough deal from an HR perspective, an organizational perspective. If I'm running a school, or if I'm running a business or anything, I don't want my teammates talking to each other that way. So you address it. Mm-hmm. So I would be curious. I'd say, I brought that up to you and I asked it, but y'all never did anything with that. Why didn't you do that? Mm-hmm. So I would ask them just out of curiosity, because I would say, because it could happen again. And if it happens again, I want to know what you want me to do. Okay, you don't become a big problem over this, but ask him. But in terms of her, I would be nobody responded to your letter saying you weren't meeting their expectations. Your job reviews and all that are great.
Right. I only given it to the teacher. I haven't given a copy of the letter to my principal yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, what I would do is I would learn from what happened when you talked to her, and when you talked to her, you didn't get any ownership. And so if I did talk to her again in accordance with, there's a great principle here. One of my favorite passages, Matthew 18, it says you go talk to the person, and if they don't own it, then you get 2 or 3 other people to go with you. Okay. So in this case, you have the other person, and you can either do this, you can drop it and realize this is a woman you want to be wary of. She can't be trusted. Okay. And she can't be given feedback to by yourself because it doesn't help, right? Don't confront a mocker lest you incur insults upon yourself, Proverbs says. So I would either just ignore her and do my job, or if you did want to take it further, I would go with the other woman, because you've already talked to her by yourself. I'd go with the other woman and say, you know what, it feels awkward to be around you or be in these teacher meetings when this is unresolved. We really want to know what you meant by this. So I do it with the other woman. I wouldn't do it alone. Okay. And then you might want to talk to whoever's the HR person about, are y'all going to do something about this? Or should I just drop it? Or what should I do when it happens again? I'm just seeking some counsel here and approach it like
that. Okay.
Unfortunately, I got to run. We are out of time, but I appreciate your nice comments and the work you do with the kids. God bless you, teachers, especially, when you're in the special needs areas. You guys are awesome. So thank you for that. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. We are at the end of our time again. Don't know how that happens, but it does. Tomorrow, I need to check and make sure, because y'all have me confused now. I'm going to blame you for this, because you know what? I hate taking responsibility. I'm kidding, sort of. Not really, not all the time. Sometimes, it's hard. But I'm going to blame y'all that you're changing the times on me. So I got to know what we got going here. Okay, so I think tomorrow we're at 10 a.m. Pacific, which is lunchtime for you Central time zoners, and late lunch for you East Coast time zoners, and breakfast time for those of you who live in my neighborhood. Okay, we'll kind of have the, I don't know, mid-morning break. How's that for you early birds? How did the morning people get in control of the earth? It's just not fair. Okay, now I do mornings. I have to do mornings in my work and other things, but mainly because the morning people set the times. I guess they got in control because they showed up and set all the rules. But I think we ought to have a Jubilee year where I think all of us night owls, and people that are a little less, structured, I think we should set the schedule next year. I'm gonna float that as maybe a proposition on the ballot. I want the night owls to set the new post-COVID schedule for a year. Okay, we'll start a little later, be a little more awake, and go into the late night when all the great thoughts come. Okay, guys, way over time. It has been great to be with you. I will see you tomorrow. And go to boundaries.me. Check it out, boundaries.me. All righty. See you tomorrow.